We have Andrew Bouton from Vermont Fish and Wildlife. And Andrew grew up in Addison County in New Haven, went to Mount Abe. He left to go to college, bounced around the country for 10 years or so, working with waterfowl and wetlands on a variety of research projects. He then returned home to take his dream job as the state migratory game bird biologist. Wow. Responsible for all things related to migratory game birds, from setting hunting seasons to coordinating surveys and participating in a variety of research projects focusing on waterfowl. So his talk he titled as Waterfowl Management, Research, and Conservation. Feel free to ask questions, and I'll turn things over to Andrew.
Thank you. So yeah, I guess I'll give a little bit of background. So yeah, I grew up in New Haven, left, went to school, did my undergrad in Montana, wildlife biology, and then I worked in Nevada, Mississippi, Virginia, Minnesota, North Dakota, and then I did my master's on canvasbacks in Illinois, and then I went back to North Dakota for 3 years working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service before finally getting a chance to come home. So yeah, and I've been back here for about 3 years or so. So yeah, I've got a presentation for you guys. Some of it's going to be a little bit in the weeds, but it's good to go into some of that detail to give people an understanding of the complexities of some of the different things that we do for migratory game birds, waterfowl more specifically. So waterfowl are 3 main groups: ducks, geese, and swans. There's 40-something species of waterfowl in North America that breed in North America. 30-plus species of ducks, 7 species of geese, and 2 to 3 species of swans, depending on whether you include the invasive mute swan or not. So ducks are broken into 3 main categories: your dabbling ducks, your diving ducks, and your tree ducks. So you have tree ducks, diving ducks, and dabbling ducks. So these are some, if not, I think these are all of the common dabbling ducks in North America. Your mallard complex, the mallard complex on the top, which includes mallards, and then black ducks, mottled ducks, and Mexican ducks. I can't remember which order I put those pictures in, and they're all really similar, and I don't deal with the other 2 often enough to be able to distinguish between the black or the Mexican duck and the mottled duck. Wood ducks, blue-winged teal, cinnamon teal, northern shoveler, gadwall, widgeon, pintail, and green-winged teal. And then your diving ducks, which are made up of, most of these are sometimes witnessed in Vermont. There's only 3 that are essentially never show up. And that's these 3 eider species. I do believe that maybe a king eider once in a very long while shows up, but spectacled and Steller's eiders definitely never show up. They're only found in Alaska. But long-tailed duck, redhead, ringneck, lesser and greater. Again, I don't remember which order I put them in, and they're hard to tell without their wings open. Canvasback, Barrow's goldeneye, common goldeneye, bufflehead, black scoter, surf scoter, white-winged scoter, common eider, Steller's eider, spectacled eider, king eider, harlequin, ruddy, hooded merganser, red-breasted merganser, and common merganser. And then your tree ducks, only one of these has ever been seen in Vermont, as far as I know. The black-belly whistling ducks, and then the other one is the fulvous whistling duck. Most of these are found down along the Gulf Coast. And then there's 7 species of geese. The white-fronted goose, emperor goose, cackling goose, Canada goose, brant, Ross's goose, and snow goose. And then there are 2 swan species that are commonly found in North America that are native to North America, the trumpeter swan and then the tundra swan. So waterfowl are migratory in nature, so they need to be managed collectively among states and provinces. Yeah?
Where are loons?
Loons are not a waterfowl species.
Okay. I'll accept that.
So that answers their question. So they need to be managed collectively among states and provinces. Because of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, we work with Canada and Mexico, and they're managed on a flyway basis. So there are 4 main flyways in North America: Pacific, Central, Mississippi, and Atlantic, which we are part of. So the Atlantic Flyway is made up of 17 states, provinces, and territories, all along the Atlantic coast, so it makes sense. And then Vermont is further divided up into 3 hunting zones. The Lake Champlain zone, which is shared with New York, and Vermont sets the seasons for that. The interior Vermont zone, which is entirely within Vermont, and then the Connecticut River zone, which is shared with New Hampshire, and New Hampshire sets the seasons for that. So within the Atlantic Flyway, every year, all the biologists from every state and multiple provinces, along with representatives from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Canadian Wildlife Service, get together twice a year, once in February and then once in August or September, to go over all the latest data from all the different surveys that are conducted, go over research, look at population information, and discuss all the ins and outs of waterfowl and migratory game birds, to decide or to discuss seasons and bag limits and anything other issues that may be coming up with species. And we make those decisions for the following year. So it's a year out decision. Then that technical section, which is made up of the biologists, makes a recommendation to council. The Atlantic Flyway Council is made up of more administrative and higher level people that actually have financial decision-making power. So we make a recommendation to them, they vote on those recommendations, and then that goes to the Service Regulations Committee, which is representatives from each flyway and council and the Fish and Wildlife Service to evaluate those decisions. And then they set the final frameworks. And then it comes back down to the state level again, where we annually set seasons based in those frameworks set by the SRC. And currently, and for the last 20-ish years, we've been in a liberal framework, which allows for 60 days for ducks, and that can be split into 2 segments. So that was the most in the weeds part. Now it's a little more fun information stuff, but just I like to throw that in because it helps people understand how complex and how many different levels are looked at to set waterfowl seasons, and how seriously it's taken, and how much information and thought goes into it. So where does all the information that we use to set those seasons come from? So there's the Northeast Breeding Plot Survey. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does annual surveys, aerial surveys. Then there's banding efforts that each state does, as long as they also do up in Canada. And then there's Parts Collection Survey, Hunter Diaries, Harvest Information Program, and research. So aerial surveys are conducted in the Eastern Survey area, which includes all the eastern provinces and Maine. And then the Northeast Breeding or Atlantic Flyway Breeding Waterfowl Survey, there's several names for it. It goes from New Hampshire down to Virginia, and that's all based on the ground, people walk into a 2-kilometer area and survey all of the water in that area to get an estimate of, or to count the number of waterfowl seen in that plot. And then that all gets compiled by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they're able to come up with estimates for populations. Then we also do a lot of banding efforts. For geese, we generally use drive trapping because they go through a flightless period each year in late June, early July. So we can round them up with their young because their young also can't fly yet. We just herd them into a pen, and then we can pull them out, age, sex, and band them. Then for duck banding, there's lots of different techniques for capturing ducks. We primarily use rocket nets and walk-in traps in Vermont. So this is a rocket net. So there's a giant net, you bait in front of it, and then you touch off what are essentially, rockets that carry the net up and over the birds and trap them, and then everybody comes running out, pull the birds out of the net as quickly as they can, get them into crates, and then we can work them up, age, sex, and band, and then release. And then walk-in traps, like pictured here, which we're getting to do here in the next couple weeks. Basically, it's a small funnel trap, and we bait inside it, and the birds come up and work their way in, and then they can't figure out how to get back out. There's actually a double funnel on this one, so there's a funnel here, and then a funnel into these side compartments. So sometimes they can figure out to get back out one funnel, but it's very rare that they can get out through 2 funnels. And then this is a swim-in trap. Swim-in traps and dive-in traps are very similar. It's just the height of the water that they're placed in and the species that you're targeting. Then there's also night lighting, generally done by airboat, big spotlights and fish nets, and you run around and scoop birds out of the water. And then mist nutting is generally done mostly for sea ducks or birds or ducks that fly long, flat flights. I've attempted that one, but never successfully. But the other 5 methods I've done a lot of. So then the parts collection survey, a random subset of hunters every year are asked to mail in a wing from each duck and the tail feathers from geese. So most ducks can be identified to the age and the species and the sex, and then geese can be aged by their tail feathers. So now we'll get into a little bit of the current research that's going on that we as a state have been participating in. So the Eastern Mallard Research Collaborative, its objectives are to better understand breeding survival and habitat usage, quantify and compare female mallard movements and habitat use throughout their annual cycle, understand eastern mallard movement timing, and then assess competition between black ducks and mallards, because there's also a black duck project that's going on concurrently, and better understand the fate of broods and identify priority habitat for conservation management actions. So the Eastern Mallard Research Collaborative has marked over 1,200 female mallards over the last 5 to 6 years among 22 collaborating agencies, and in 2023 specifically, which was the last big year, we deployed 610 transmitters and over 400 geolocators across the Atlantic Flyway. And this is actually one of the transmitters that we deployed, if you want to pass that around. It's just like the one here. It's got a solar panel on the back. It's strapped, it has a strap that goes up and around the neck, and then around the back behind the wings. And that holds it in place, and the solar panel continually recharges it. And these units last 3 to 4 years in a lot of situations. Sometimes not quite as long, but Vermont itself contributed money to this project, and we deployed 8 transmitters in 2022, 13 in 2023, as well as 16 geolocators, which are a much smaller unit, and it goes on a band on the duck's leg, and it's a light sensor that tracks sunrise and sunset times, and from that, when they retrieve that unit, they can download that and use it to calculate where the bird was based on sunrise and sunset times. But those have to be recovered to get that data, whereas the GPS units upload twice a day, but they're recording data every 15 minutes. And they upload all of that twice a day, every 11 or 13 hours. I can't remember which one, but. And then, let's see, in 2024, we deployed 3 transmitters and 13 geolocators, and 2025, 16 geolocators, and then we have 3 transmitters and 2 geolocators sitting on my desk right now, ready to go out in the next couple of weeks. So here's a couple of cool sketches, I don't really know what to call them, but showing some of the mallard movement from 2022. So right now we're in September, and coming up here, you'll start to see a lot of movement as it starts to get colder up north. Starting into October, start to see these bigger movements. Late October, and now going into November, and they just start piling south as the northern waters start to freeze up and trigger some of their instincts. And now we're going into December, and you can see that there's only a few spots, like that's Lake Champlain, and then that's like the, I don't even know what the Erie Canal, I guess, would be, but largely areas that stay open throughout the winter. And now we're into January. You can see one stayed up on Lake Champlain all winter long. And then this is a more zoomed in of an individual hen mallard. And you can see that blue square is where she has a nest. So you'll see that she goes back and forth to that spot. She goes out to feed and then goes back to incubate. And then pretty soon you'll see that she leaves, but she stays only in open water areas, and that's because she has a brood. So she's still incubating. And then there, now you can see that she's moving around with her brood. She's not going very far away, staying on open water, but occasionally she goes out to feed in a different area or scout a different area, but she keeps coming back to her brood. So these are all the agencies that participate in this project, all up and down the Atlantic Flyway, from South Carolina all the way up to Maine and Canada, even onto PEI. And then there's also a concurrent black duck project going on, which is looking at a lot of the same things, a little bit smaller, but its objectives are to quantify movements, behavior, wetland use, and reproductive metrics, determine drivers of reproductive success during breeding season, they set out to deploy 500 devices. I think they're above that now. The slide is a couple years old, but I haven't gotten any updated numbers. And the Mississippi Flyway also joined in on this project to deploy 104 devices. And here's a couple maps side by side, 2022 on the left and 2023 on the right, showing black duck movements. And you can see a lot of the same timings of migration in the black ducks that you saw in the mallards on the earlier slide. And here we're in January, or we were in January, and most of the birds were focused along the Atlantic coast. And then there's also a study going on Atlantic population Canada geese, deploying over 500 GPS transmitters, and these are actually on neck collars, which you can see, you might be able to see on these two individuals. They have solar panels on the side to keep them charged, and yeah, so this, a lot of the same similar objectives, but determine migration routes and timing, estimate exposure days of Atlantic population Canada geese to hunting pressures within resident population zones. So there's actually 3 separate subpopulations of Canada geese that we get in Vermont. The Atlantic population, which nests up on Hudson Bay and the Ungava Peninsula. The North Atlantic population, which nests up on Newfoundland and Labrador. And then the resident population, which are the ones that nest around here and you see basically all year round. So we have an early September season for the resident geese, and so some of this research was to look at when that Atlantic population is starting to come south to see if they are being exposed during that early September season, because the Atlantic population gets hunted a lot harder because it goes all the way from Canada all the way down to the Chesapeake and beyond. So whereas the resident population is only being hunted around here, or our section of the resident population. So they wanted to see when those birds were actually migrating, and then determine wintering and breeding site fidelity. Traditionally, they've protected early arriving geese, but do they always arrive early? And then describe the breeding range. Are we missing birds in our survey? There's a traditional survey area, which ends about here on the Ungava Peninsula. So all these birds are birds that nested beyond our survey routes. So this research has made us start trying to figure out how to move some of our survey routes north or add additional survey routes so we're better capturing the population, have a better understanding of where they're nesting and what the population is doing. And here's some of the geese. They're much more concentrated. They're much more of a flock migrant. And so they're all staging up here on the St. Lawrence. And then, so this is spring migration. So we're into May, and now they just all take off to go up onto Ungava. All within a few days of each other. So now we're into June. They're on their nesting sites. They're incubating at this point. So they're really not moving at all at the scale that you could see on this map, other than a few that were probably failed nesters. And they're just sitting there into July. They're starting to move around a little bit, but just at a really small scale because they've probably hatched at this point. So they're wandering around with their broods. And then into August, and then coming up here, they're going to start to stage, and then they're going to all head south again. So into September, and now they're starting to get that cold push and head south, staging central Ungava, and then boom, all at once again, all within a couple of days of each other. And these are all the participating agencies in this project. And then there's also a GSM GPS transmitter project going on Brant. I don't have any cool animations, but I do have a couple of maps showing. So this is spring migration. You can see a couple go up through Lake Champlain, and then this is fall migration. You get a little bit bigger of a push through Lake Champlain, which is somewhere in there. It's hard to see, but and that all happens in a very short period of time as well. I guess that's all I had. Thank you. I can answer any questions.
Is there any dialogue between Canada and the U.S., their fish and wildlife folks, between the hunting pressure for the geese?
So the question was, is there any dialogue between Canada and the U.S. as far as hunting pressure goes? And yes, we work very closely with Canada on all these decisions to try to better manage the populations and make sure that we're not doing something that Canada's not in favor of, and Canada's not doing something that we're against. We all work really close to get together. The Flyway Council and tech sections are like a big family. We all get together for a week, twice a year, and we all become really close friends, have a lot of difficult discussions, but it's a lot of fun, and we all get to talk about ducks for a week, which is great.
So how are the black ducks doing? I understand that their population has been declining for a long period of time. Is it stabilizing? Or?
So the question is, how are the black ducks doing? Black duck populations have actually gone up the last 5 or 6 years, so they're doing much better now. There were theories that they were declining because of hybridization with mallards, but that they're now finding doesn't really seem to be the case. It was probably largely habitat loss. Black ducks evolved in the Northeast with deep, heavy forested cover. So with a lot less forested cover, black ducks didn't have their natural habitat. That's some of my theory, at least. Nobody really knows why they declined, but they are coming back up and looking good. Yeah.
Had the avian flu affected these populations this year or last year?
So has the avian flu impacted the waterfowl populations in general? Yes, not at a population level scale, or not. It hasn't caused a decline in the populations, but there are isolated patches where it wipes out quite a few. We had a case on Button Bay last winter where we found 30 to 40 dead Canada geese. So it does impact, but it's more in isolated pockets. It's not having an effect, as far as we know, at a population level.
Is there any change in the use of lead for fishing fleets affecting or reduced in use?
So the question is there any effect on waterfowl populations from reducing or from lead use fishing tackle? Yeah, okay. So that's another thing that we haven't seen a population level decline. When lead shot was still legal, there were a few studies that showed that it was having lead shot was having significant impacts on populations because they're picking it up for their gizzards. But with the reduction or with the elimination of lead shot for waterfowl hunting, that doesn't seem to be an impact anymore. Fishing tackle isn't at the same scale as lead shot was in the environment, so I don't think that it is having an impact. I can't say for sure. I think that would be more targeted to smaller individuals or individual birds, just because it's not on the landscape in the same scale.
The impact of hunting on waterfowl.
Mhm.
Just thinking out loud, this will never happen. But if there were a moratorium on all hunting of waterfowl, would it help the species, every species? Or is that in a pretty good equilibrium?
So the question is, if there were to be a moratorium on waterfowl hunting, would the populations increase? Likely no. So the current thought right now and the current research is showing that most waterfowl hunting, particularly on ducks, geese are a little bit different because they're a longer lived species, but on ducks, waterfowl hunting is compensatory. So there's two different types of mortality when it comes to a population. Compensatory, where you're just removing the excess subset of the population that would likely die anyway. And additive, which you're adding to what would normally die anyway. Compensatory at the moment, and all the current research is showing that and validating that it is compensatory. So you're just taking out birds that would have died anyway. So with geese, it's a little bit different because they're a longer lived species, but on a shorter lived species, since they can reproduce so fast and have larger clutches, then they can catch up or reduce their populations almost instantaneously.
I've heard geese that they breed and have partners for a long period of time. Is that correct? Or?
So they do form long-term pair bonds, and that's their main couple, but saying that they're truly monogamous is a little bit of a stretch, because they'll both, even though that's their main partner, they'll still both go out and explore other areas.
Do your geolocators indicate any adaptations or changes in the duck's migratory patterns according to pollution? I mean, areas of Lake Champlain, areas of Lake George have real pollution problems. And I would wonder if some of those migratory patterns would alter as a result.
So the question is our data showing any alteration to migration because of pollution? Not that I'm aware of. They are finding pollutants and microplastics in waterfowl that they're sampling, but it's not impacting their migration as far as we know. Climate change is certainly impacting their migration patterns, but not pollution as far as I know, or of any research that I know of.
Water temperature?
Yes, in a roundabout way, because if it's warm enough, then it's not freezing, so there's open water, so the birds are staying on it. Yeah.
So that is my question, was the impact of climate change on either, changes in migration patterns or timing or locations that they're staging or whatever?
So yeah, the question was waterfowl migration in relation to climate change and warming temperatures. Yes, there's a lot of changes in migration happening right now. It's becoming quite apparent in the Midwest, where ducks and geese are no longer migrating as far south. So the southern hunters are starting to complain because the same level of ducks and geese are not getting to them. They're short stopping finishing in Missouri and Illinois rather than going all the way down into Louisiana. And it's a whole big controversy right now. It's a lot of drama, but so people are blaming.
Do you think that because the birds are stopping?
Yeah, so the birds are stopping further north because there's open water staying open longer all the way through the winter. The southern hunters are blaming the central flyway hunters, claiming that they're leaving standing corn and putting out heated ponds to keep the birds further north. It's a lot of drama, and I'm glad I'm not in that flyway to have to deal with any of that. But
Can you trace for us, we get to see the snow geese when they're here. Where are they coming from and where are they going?
so yeah, the question is, where are the snow geese coming from and where are they going? So we have greater snow geese in the Atlantic flyway. Lesser snow geese are in the mid-continent. So the greater snow geese nest up on Baffin Island, generally, and then they come down through. Most of them hit the St. Lawrence and go through the Finger Lakes. We barely get any here anymore. Only about 2,500 that stop at Dead Creek anymore. Used to be 30,000+. And then they head south and basically end up on the Chesapeake, Maryland, Virginia area, some down into North Carolina, and that's kind of where their wintering grounds are.
Why did they move west their flight path?
So why did the snow geese change their flight path? Our ongoing theory is that farming practices became significantly more efficient. So chopping corn, there is basically nothing left anymore in the fields. Farmers are become much more efficient getting every last grain and every last stalk harvested for their cattle. So there's no more waste grain in the fields. So they're all going out through central New York where they have a lot more grain farming. And there's a lot more waste grain just involved in grain farming in general than there is with cutting for silage. Yeah.
I've heard about Ross's geese. Is that another name for one of the geese you've already mentioned?
So, sure about Ross's geese. Ross's geese are actually a different species. They are a light goose. So there's two main categories of geese that we refer to, dark geese and light geese. Ross's geese are a light goose. They are, let's see, they're smaller than a snow goose. So this is a Ross's goose. So it has a shorter bill, and just smaller in general. And then this is a snow goose, which has a much bigger bill. It has a black smile, and it's just a bigger bird in general. Greater snow geese are also significantly bigger than lesser snow geese, but other than that, they look the same. Yeah.
Anything that caused any of those birds to produce more eggs, bigger broods, better environment?
So the question is there anything that causes them to produce bigger broods or have higher success rates? Not really. They're generally going to lay the same amount of eggs every year, and the same amount so the bigger influence is food sources after they've hatched. So when they're raising their broods, if there's more food on the landscape and fewer predators or whatever, more of those hatched birds are going to survive to southern migration, basically. Yeah.
I grew up on Long Island, on the South Shore of Long Island, and in my lifetime, them, we can't get rid of them. Is that true that it is a man-made issue of creating this resident population?
So the question is the resident Canada goose population a result of people, essentially? And yes, it is. So in the 50s and 60s, Dead Creek was actually established for this purpose. The migrating Canada geese populations were in the bottom of the ditch. They were not doing well at all. So the thought was that we could supplement those populations by raising geese in some of these locales, getting those birds to stop in these more temperate areas. I don't know. That's probably not the right word, but in these areas, so they did it all across North America or all across the U.S. They captured a few geese, raised them in captivity, did a few years of this, probably 10 or so years of this, would release those captive reared birds into the wild, hoping that they would migrate, but then would stop back here, and they ended up imprinting on these areas and staying here and not migrating. And then from there, those populations just expanded and expanded and continued to grow. So whereas some places, especially on water bodies with a lot of nice large homes in particular, they have become a significant nuisance, yes.
So I understand that the snow geese are overgrazing a lot of their breeding habitat up on the north slope, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that happening?
So the question is, why are the snow geese overgrazing or overpopulated? So the lesser snow goose population or the greater snow goose population that we have here, we've actually knocked it down significantly to the level that we've been targeting. It's still high above what was likely historically around here or historically in the Atlantic flyway. But the central and Mississippi flyways still have a significant population. So the cause of the snow goose overpopulation was a lot of an increase in industrial agriculture. So they have a lot of food available on their wintering grounds, so they can really fatten up and have a lot of nutrients available for them when they head back north. So they're have a much higher reproductive success rate when they get back north than they would have historically. And so they can produce more eggs or produce better quality eggs. And so then once those goslings hatch, there's not enough food up there and they're eating everything in sight. Which is why the spring snow goose season was implemented, was to try and put stress on those birds so they wouldn't be as physically fit when they got up north. And it has worked, at least in the Atlantic flyway, on the greater population. And we've brought that back down into more of an equilibrium state.
Thank you.